good morning to our support team, the delegation from TPE, and all other stakeholders that have joined our meeting today.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Honorable Kaba. Colleagues, firstly, I want to apologize. I am down with flu. I think I undermined it. I think so. It is really bad. So I really can't switch on my video because I am sneezing and all those things. So I apologize, colleagues. The second issue, colleagues, is to welcome you all after a very hectic oversight visit in Mpumalanga, which, of course, as per our own directive, only took 3 days. And we felt that it was not enough. And I think these are sentiments that were shared, sorry, that were shared by many of the members of the committee, that perhaps the 3 days was not enough, which I fully agree. And we've agreed that we are going to look at our program, or our third term program, to see if we cannot conclude an oversight visit in Mpumalanga. We also had an outstanding meeting with the PED, which we believed would be important so that we are able to close out a report that we are going to submit to Parliament. We would have to look at our program, which is very tight, and there's competing interests as to how or when do we fit the PED. Currently, it's very difficult to fit the PED because of the mini plenaries that are going to be taking place next week and the plenaries that are taking place as well this week. So we had initially anticipated having this meeting perhaps this coming Friday, but there is issues of plenary. That's the second issue. The third issue, colleagues, I did receive correspondences from members of the portfolio committee who have requested that we call the department to come and account on the issues that are on the media, the issue about the publishers and the issue about the textbooks catalog, because it is all over media, and of course different political parties. As some who are here in the committee, members of the committee, have commented on what we've seen on the media, and there's also been correspondences from about 3 political parties, Honorable Law, Honorable Shkwambana, and Honorable Mkhize, who wrote to request that we call the department to come and account on the issue, because the issue is everywhere and it has created serious issues. It has created panic in terms of the credibility of the processes that are undertaken by the department. We tried to look at our program with Mr. Brown so that we can fit that meeting. We were looking at Friday, but as I had said earlier, that Friday there is a lady who is unmuted. Please mute. Friday there is a plenary in the morning and in the afternoon throughout Friday. So we could not. So we've made an application, which I saw there is some issues with the application. We tried to make an application that we actually apply to have the whole day on Tuesday next week, so that we can deal with both the item that was pre-scheduled, which is the update or the report by the ELRC, and in the afternoon then we deal with this matter, the department comes to account. So we're still having to engage with the House Chair and so that we can be granted such a permission. But up to this far, we don't have that permission yet. We've just made the application to have the whole day on Tuesday. The other difficulty with the Tuesday is the fact that there is mini plenaries, there is budget votes, and some of the members of the portfolio committee are members or fall into the clusters of the specific budget votes that are going to be listened to by the mini plenaries. So they might need to participate in those budget votes. So we're looking at that, honorable members. I just want to acknowledge that we've received your letters, we've received your communiques, and we are looking at the best possible way to fit that meeting as soon as we can based on our program. That's the second. And the third thing, honorable members, is to say that we are going to be receiving presentations from DBE on the budget review and APP of 2026-2027. As I always reiterate that this is one of the most important engagement that we have with the department, because the APPs are instruments for us as a portfolio committee to ensure that we are able to see what are the plans of the department and how have they aligned those plans to the MTDP, and how have they aligned those plans to the vision of this government. How have they aligned those plans also to the budget that they are allocated, but also these APPs assist us as members of the portfolio committee to ascertain if the department is prioritizing the important or is focusing on important focus areas, especially things that we're able to detect, things that we're able to get when we are on the ground and when we are conducting oversight. So this is one of the most important platform. It's one of the most important engagement for us as a portfolio committee with the department. I'm now going to, before I allow the department, we added this was one of the items that the budget review was an item that we should have listened to weeks ago, but based on the fact that there were issues, the department at some stage was not ready. At some stage we had to move the meeting because they had an engagement. We had to move the item because they had an engagement. I think it was a headcom workshop. Now we then had to put the item today and put this item with another long-standing item, which is the state of the National School Nutrition Program, which we are going to be receiving presentation on as well today. One of the programs that we pride ourselves with, when we do oversight to schools, I always make this example that there's many challenges that you find on the ground, especially as they relate to infrastructure, but you seldom find challenges that relate to the NSNP program. And that for us, and the fact that wherever we've been in Mpumalanga, the schools were indicating how grateful they were that now we have introduced the breakfast meal. And some of the schools were even indicating how that component, how introducing the breakfast meal has been very instrumental for attendance and for arrival on time of learners, because they actually now come to school early, and that means they are on time, and that has also improved attendance. So that is one of the programs that we pride ourselves in as a country, and one of the programs that we want it to work. It has to effectively and efficiently work. Where there are challenges, I think we will be able to hear today what the challenges are and what are the plans to ensure that we deal with those challenges. But this is one of the programs that should really not fail, because they have kept our learners in class, and they have really improved the learning outcomes of our children in many communities. So with that said, honorable members, you are all welcome to our meeting. Mr. Brown, can we deal with the attendance register? Firstly, let's deal with the members that are in the meeting, and then we deal with the apologies before we go to the minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, members. Good morning, officials from the department, Chair. I just a roll call. I have yourself, Honourable Maimela. I have Honourable Chaba. I have Honourable Magagula, Honourable Yordan, Honourable Mkize, Honourable Ngadi, Honourable Shikwambana, Honourable Kumane, Honourable Ngubeni. I'm
Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown?
Chairperson, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
My apologies, Chair. Just on the roll call, it's yourself, Honourable Maimela, Honourable Kabanchaba, Honourable Magagula, Honourable Yordan, Honourable Mkize, Honourable Ngadi, Honourable Shikwambana, Honourable Kumane, Honourable Ngubeni. I hope I'm not leaving out any of my members that may have joined the platform. In respect of apologies, Chair, I've only received the apology for the Deputy Minister, who has a long-standing commitment today, and she will unfortunately not be able to join us this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Can we then deal with item 4, the minutes? Can we deal with the minutes, Mr. Brown? These are minutes of the last portfolio committee meeting, right, Mr. Brown?
That's correct, Chairperson. That's the engagement with Saisi and Umalusi.
Yes, on the APP and the strategic plans. Honorable members, I take it you've received these minutes on time and you had a chance to go through the minutes. Are there any corrections, any amendments members would want us to make to the minutes? Okay, I don't see any hands for amendments and corrections. Okay, in the absence of amendments and corrections, honorable members, is there any mover for the adoption of this minutes? Honorable Kaba, Chaba.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to the members of this portfolio committee in the platform and the officials from the department. I move to adoption of the minute, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Van der Walt.
Morning, Chair and colleagues. I will second the proposal to adopt, Chair.
Okay, the minutes are duly adopted, honorable members. Honorable members, can I make this request? I know that my camera is not on, but we're usually encouraged to have our cameras on when we speak so that it's not just dark on the screen. I've already apologized for why I can't have it on, but I want to encourage members, those who are in a position to do so, please do so. We will then move to item number 5, which is the 2 presentations by the department. Minister, please lead the team. You will advise, but what we would want is to take the 2 presentations and then ask questions afterwards, because we do have plenary later in the afternoon, so we would really want to finish on time so that members can travel to the house.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and a very good morning to you and the members of the Portfolio Committee. I always welcome the opportunity to appear before you. And this morning we are dealing with two very important matters. Firstly, the 2026 budget review, and secondly, then, as you indicated, the ever so important National School Nutrition Program and its rollout challenges and the review. Both matters quite important. One deals with the overall planning and priorities and the use of public resources. The other deals with the most direct and immediate intervention through which the state supports learners every single day. Taken together, they speak to the core responsibility of the sector to ensure that the system is not only properly planned and funded, but that it works in practice for the children that we serve. Chair, as the department presents the 2026-2027 APP and medium-term expenditure framework, I believe it's important that we remain clear about the purpose of the exercise. I would want us to move away just from a compliance exercise. It's not just really about tabling plans, indicators, budget lines. It's about whether or not the department is properly aligned, as you indicated in your opening remarks, to the long-term goals of the sector, whether it's focused on the right priorities, and whether it's organized to deliver measurable improvements in the quality of basic education. So the department's planning framework is anchored in the NDP, in the Medium Term Development Plan and Action Plan of 2029, and it seeks to give effect to the priorities that have been identified for this administration. These include strengthening foundational learning, improving literacy, numeracy, expanding access to early child development, improving learner retention, as you indicated about the introduction of breakfast and how that has, in fact, sorry, also a bit fluey, Chair, just like yourself. I apologize. Improving learner retention, supporting inclusive education, strengthening teacher capacity, and improving the overall function of the system. And I've said before, we must guard against becoming just focused on inputs alone. But plans matter, budgets matter, systems matter, governance matters. But they're not enough on their own. We must be equally and indeed relentlessly focused on outputs and results. And that's what we must be focused on. So, in other words, I think the real test is not only whether or not the department has a plan, but whether that plan is producing the change where it matters the most. Are children learning to read for meaning? Are they acquiring numeracy skills early enough? Are learners being retained in the system? Are we safer and more inclusive in our school environments? Are provincial and national interventions leading to measurable gains in learning and support? That, I think, is the standard by which our work should be judged. And the same principle applies to the school nutrition program. It's one of the most important interventions. It's not only just as the department, the presentation makes clear that the program currently reaches 9.4 million learners and in more than 20,000 schools, supported by over 61,000 food handlers and more than 2,000 small, medium, and enterprises. It is one of the clearest examples of how an education policy, social protection, and poverty alleviation can intersect in practice. So, for our part, Chair, we are committed to leading a department that is increasingly results driven, evidence based, and responsive to oversight. We know that public confidence in the education system depends not on our intention alone, but how we deliver. I trust that today's engagement will allow the committee to interrogate both our department's broader budget performance framework and, of course, the school nutrition program. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I look forward to engaging you and the members. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I thought you were handing over to the team.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Team, over to you.
Thank you, Minister, Honorable Chair, honorable members, Mrs. Nozipo, Bonambi will start the first part The Minister has covered extensively some of the areas that he would have covered in the initial part of the presentation. So she'll go to the indicators, and I've spoken to her that she must keep it as short as possible to allow for questions and discussions. Mr. Kuno will also just reflect on differences in this budget compared to the previous ones, and also be very brief, 5 minutes or so, and then round off that presentation and take the next one of the NSNP, which will also take about 20 minutes. If you allow, Chair, I will request Ms. Mbonambi to start, followed by Mr. Kuno. Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Minister, DG, DDGs, and all the senior managers of the department. So as DG has indicated, I will take you through mostly the indicators and targets because Minister has touched on all the priorities which are considered when developing the annual performance plan. And maybe I'll just go a few slides before the actual APP on the findings to assure members that the annual performance plan 26-27 for the department has been reviewed by both Department of Monitoring, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, as well as AGSA. And they issued the findings in the short findings which were not material. The DPME, the additions they recommended on the situational analysis and also strengthened explanation for planned performance. And from the AGSA, it was more about strengthening the sources of data, the methods of calculation, as well as the means of verification. So I can assure the members of the portfolio committee that all the findings that were raised were discussed, and the APP was resubmitted to both DPME and AGSA. So in terms of the targets, I will just go straight to the targets. This slide 33 summarizes the indicators. It's a summary of indicators per program, programs 1 to 5. The number of indicators for 26-27, the total is 66. 5 for program 1, 34 for program 2, which is the core, and that is the curriculum. 12 for program 3, 8 for program 4, 7 for program 5. Out of the 66 indicators, 40 annual targets, and 2 are biannual, and 24 are quarterly targets, which we'll be presenting also to the portfolio committee every quarter. So in program 1, we have these indicators which are more about the governance. And first indicator on invoices paid within 30 days, the target is 100%. Second indicator is on reports on misconduct cases resolved. The target is 4. Next indicator on number of capacity building programs. This is to offer skills to the employees and officials in the department. The target is 20. The fourth indicator, the number of Schedule 4 and 5 conditional grant quarterly performance reports that are submitted to National Treasury 45 days after end of each quarter. Those are 24 reports. And number of advisory reports on school education related matters prepared for the minister by the National Education and Training Council. It's 2 indicators. That takes us to the program 2 indicators, which is quite lengthy, 34 indicators. First indicator on the technical schools, monitored on the implementation of curriculum assessment policy statement. The annual target is 27. Next indicator, learners obtaining subject passes towards National Senior Certificate or Senior Certificate through the Second Chance Matric Program. It's 90,000. And also this was adjusted due to the budget cuts. Number of children or learners taught using the learner program, it's 4,327. Learners experiencing barriers to learning supported through the SIAS policy, 52,000. Children benefiting from the ECD, 1 million. Children accessing registered ECD programs, 1,050,000. ECD reporting system, which is ECAS. The target is the approved user acceptance testing report on development of the ECAS. The next indicator, tabling of 2023 Children's Amendment Bill in Parliament. So this will be tabled as a target for 26-27. Districts monitored on the implementation of national curriculum statement. It's 15 districts, that is in grade 10 to 12. Provinces monitored for extra support classes to increase bachelors, it's all the provinces, 9. Candidates achieving 60% and above in mathematics and national senior certificate, 35,954. Candidates achieving 60% and above in physical science in national senior certificate examinations, 34,570. Number of schools implementing general education certificates, 5,500. Schools, special schools offering occupational and vocational subjects, the annual target is 175 schools. Percentage of female learners accessing technical subjects in public ordinary schools. This is a new indicator to align to the medium-term development plan. And the target is 35.5%. History curriculum and assessment policy statement for grades 4 to 12 revised. The target is actually the revised history caps for grades 4 to 12, which will be resubmitted to Umalusi for appraisal after public comments. Number of schools monitored on implementing entrepreneurship education, 315 schools. Schools monitored on the implementation of reading norms, 27 schools. Number of schools on the implementation of the incremental introduction to African languages, 27 schools. Number of schools monitored on the implementation of early grade reading assessment, the IGRA, it's 45. Number of schools with multi-grade classes monitored for implementing the multi-grade toolkit, 45 schools. Number of districts monitored on the implementation of the National Reading Literacy Strategy, it's 15. Districts, number of schools monitored on the availability of readers, 72 schools. Number of schools monitored on the availability of grades 3, 6, 9, and 12 mathematics and English first additional language, which is EFAL textbooks, 324 schools. Percentage of public schools provided with life skills workbooks for learners in grades 1 to 3 per year after having placed an order, it's 100%. I will just also just go through the subjects only in the next 3 indicators. It's the percentage of public school provided with home language workbooks. It's 100%. Mathematics workbooks, grades 1 to 9, also 100%. Grade R workbooks, it's 100% also. Review of the National Reading Literacy Strategy Implementation Plan. The target will be the approved National Reading Literacy Strategy Implementation Plan. Number of subject specialists orientated in mother tongue-based bilingual education, the MTBBE, it's 296 schools. Number of participants reached through advocacy sessions on mother tongue-based bilingual education, it's 1,063. Number of teachers trained on inclusive education, 10,300. Number of learners with disabilities enrolled in schools for learners with special education needs, 142,000. Number of learners with disabilities enrolled in ordinary public schools, 67,150. That takes us to the end of Program 2 indicators, which is the curriculum. Program 3 on teacher development and school governance. Percentage of school governing bodies, the SGBs, that meet minimum criteria in terms of effectiveness. Annual target is 90% of the sampled schools. Percentage of schools producing minimum set of management documents as required standard, 100%. Number of Funza Lushaka bursaries awarded to students enrolled for initial teacher education in intermediate to senior phase, to senior or FET phases, it's 4,000. Number of Funza Lushaka bursaries awarded to students enrolled for initial teacher education in foundation phase, 7,390. So you'll notice that we have targeted more on the foundation phase, the teachers. Number of district teacher development centers monitored on functionality, 78 district teacher development centers. Number of districts monitored on foundation phase, teachers trained in numeracy, it's 27. Number of districts monitored on foundation phase, teachers trained in literacy, it's 27. Number of PEDs that had their post-provisioning processes assessed for compliance with the PPN standards, it's all the PEDs, 9. Revised post-provisioning norms and standards policy drafted. The annual target is the second draft revised PPN and standards policy. Number of schools monitored on the implementation of the quality management system, QMS, for school-based officials, 54 schools. Number of districts monitored on the implementation of the education management service, performance management and development system, which is EMS, PMDS, for office-based educators, it's 25 districts. Number of job opportunities created through Basic Education Employment Initiative, shortened as BEEI, it's 150,000, and this is based on the budget allocated. Program 4 starts with the exams. Number of general education and training GET test items developed in language and maths for grades 3, 6, and 9. It's 600 test items. Number of question papers set for June and November examinations, 320 question papers. Percentage of public schools using South African School Administration and Management System, SASEMS, for reporting, it's 98%. Percentage of learners who remain in school from beginning of grade 1 and are retained up to grade 9, 90%. So this indicator is tracking the retention, as Minister has also highlighted on the retention. Percentage of learners achieving an acceptable level in emerging literacy through Early Learning National Assessment, the ELNA, 81%. Percentage of learners achieving an acceptable level in emerging numeracy through ELNA, 71%. Number of underperforming schools monitored at least twice a year by sector officials, 500 biannually. Number of schools monitored for the provision of the appropriate sanitation facilities, 55. Program 5 starts with the nutrition program. Number of schools monitored on the provision of nutritious meals, it's 110 schools. Number of schools monitored on the implementation of the HIV/AIDS life skills education program, 48. Number of districts monitored on the implementation of the National School Safety Framework, it's 25 districts. Number of participants and stakeholders reached through social cohesion programs, 6,000 participants. Number of participants and stakeholders reached to raise awareness towards ending school-related gender-based violence, 6,000 participants. Number of professionals trained in SASK programs, it's 900 professionals. And the last indicator, number of learners participating at national school sports championships, 1,100. But I must also indicate this, the budget for this sits with the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. This is just DBE tracking these learners, but the bulk will be reported by the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister. Yeah.
Mr. Mbonambi, I'm not sure which network is impacted, but I think there is that challenge. Mr. Mbonambi, are you?
It's not on your side, Chair. I think it's on the side of the presenter because I'm
Okay.
hearing the same interference.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Minister?
Yes,
I don't know
CFO, we now can hear you.
You now can hear me. Yes, I was struggling because I joined with two gadgets, so I was shuttling between the two. Apologies for that. Morning, Minister DM, DG, and colleagues. Morning to Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and members. I'm going to be presenting on the financial part. If we can go to the next slide. I'm seeing, yeah, okay, this one. Chairperson, we're going to present the 3 years, starting with the current financial year, the 3 years budgets. And the first part is to take you through how the figures end up getting to the final budget that we have. So the top figure there, or the top figures are 36.3, 36.6, and 38.3 respectively. What we call the indicative allocations, where Treasury starts by showing us that this is what you would get ordinarily, but then we go through a sequence. They go through a sequence of the events where they reduce the budget in some areas and they increase in others. Then the increase in baseline, 37.6, 12.9, and 13.4 million respectively, revolves around buildings and other fixed structures, 9.3, 12.9, and 13.4, as well as goods and services only in the first year. Then they go through a process of showing us where the baseline reduced. I won't go through every item, but the net reduction in baseline is 22.3 million, 59 million, and 134 million respectively. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. Then there's that adjustment to conditional grants, increased in conditional grants 1.8, 4.4, and 4.3 billion respectively. And then below that, they show the conditional grants that have increased. The major one, basically the one that has increased materially, is ECD. As you can see in the middle there, it has increased by 2.4, 4.6, and 4.7 billion respectively in the 3 years. Then at the end of that slide, where we say in 2026 MTF allocations, this is the budget, the final budget for the 3 years, 38.2, 41.1, and 42.5 respectively. And this is the budget that when we come through every quarter we will be talking to this budget to say this is our budget versus expenditure, but basically we'll be talking to the first year, obviously. Next slide. Yeah, then if you can look at the bottom figure, there is exactly the figures we showed on the previous slide. So this one shows our budget then per program. I won't go deeper into that, but I've hinted on it in the previous slide. Let's go to the next slide, because this slide then shows Chairperson the difference between the current year's budget and the budget for last year. At the bottom there, we show 32.3 million, which is the reduction in the net reduction in our budget. And I must just indicate, Chair, it shows a reduction of 32 million. But if you remember, Chair, our budget for the year that has just ended, that one of 38.22 billion, was initially 35 billion. And only towards the end of the financial year, we got just over 2 billion increase, which was due to ECD as well as a flood relief in KZN and Eastern Cape. So, one shouldn't be so concerned or perturbed by the fact that the budget has decreased by 32 million. Of course, one should be concerned, but I just wanted to bring context that ordinarily, if we didn't get the extra 2 billion odd towards the end of the year, would be showing a difference, a positive difference of about 3 billion. Next slide. Then this is the same information, Chair, as we showed previously, but this is per economic classification. Economic classification, as opposed to program, is basically what we're buying with the money. For example, the first one is paying salaries. The second one is goods and services, workbooks sit there. The next one is interest on rent and land, which is basically the bond that we pay on the PPP building that we're using. The next one is transfer and subsidies, basically that's where your conditional grants sit, as well as payments of capital assets. Mainly that's where, yeah, that's a RCD in the main, or the school infrastructure backlogs grant. Next slide. Then this slide shows the differences per economic classification, same as the other slide on program, but this one shows the differences. For example, towards the end there, we're showing transfers and subsidies, which is sort of in the middle. I said towards the end, so the cursor is going the end, sorry. In the middle there, we're showing that transfers and subsidies, which is conditional grants, has increased year on year by 1.4 billion. And goods and services, we're showing that it has reduced by 827 million. And then payments for capital assets has reduced by 639 million. And that one is basically the fact that the school infrastructure backlogs grant has now gone into the transfers and subsidies, which is the EIG, Education Infrastructure Grant. So it's a grant that is part of those transfers and subsidies, which now gets transferred. Transferred to which is transferred to provinces as part of the conditional grants. Next slide. Then these are earmarked funds. Over the years, this is reducing, as you can see at the bottom there. In the current year is 2.3 million. It goes down to 1.9. Then it stays at 1.9 million. The bigger chunk of that is at the top there, workbooks, which is 1.3, 1.3, and 1.4 billion respectively. Next slide. Yes, this slide shows the difference year on year. Towards the bottom there, we're showing that shift in the SIBG, School Infrastructure Backlogs Grant. And that's why there's a reduction of 1.1 billion. As I said, this grant is now added to the education infrastructure grant. So I think that's the biggest variance, basically. Next slide. Yeah, basic education employment grant, which was there in the previous year, it's no more. It was a once-off on training specifically. It was a once-off part of that BEI budget, and it's not there in the current year. So in the final analysis, Chair, total earmarked funds have reduced. It's a reduction basically, because last year it was 3.8 billion. This year it's 2.3 billion. It has reduced by 1.5, but the main components of that reduction, as I've said, it's the fact that ACD has moved to EIG, and then the training part of the BEI of 400 million. Next slide. Yeah, these are the conditional grants. We've spoken to them as a total on the other slides. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, as I've said, the conditional grants have increased by 1.4, and it's partly also because of the fact that the internal grant, school infrastructure backlogs grant, has gone to the conditional grants. Let me see if there's, yeah, there are no material variances basically, except that the ECD has increased by 548 million, which is the highest. Then we've got NSNP, which has increased by 474 million. That's, sorry, sorry, Chair, I'm trying to switch off this phone. It's not switching off, but that's the last slide, basically. Yeah, that's the last slide. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thanks, CFO. Good morning, Chairperson, Minister, DG, members of the committee and colleagues. Chair, I'm going to invite Mr. Ndlovu, who is the Chief Director for Care and Support, to take us through the NSNP presentation. Mr. Ndlovu.
Thank you, DDG. Morning, Honorable Chair, members of the Portfolio Committee, Minister, DM and DG, and colleagues. Chair, I will quickly go through the presentation on the National School Nutrition Program, just to provide updates, and also to just give a brief overview of the program, and also go through the elements of the program by providing updates, and also touch on the challenges and also the proposed reforms that we think can be implemented to address these challenges. Chair, I'm not going to dwell much on this slide, just to indicate that, to confirm that we are still reaching over 9 million learners and in over 20,000 public primary and secondary schools, and also to indicate that the objectives and the outcomes and outputs of the project has not changed. It is to address short-term hunger, malnutrition among learners, to improve attendance, nutrition and learning outcomes, as the Chair has already alluded. Chair, the program has a number of policy and guidelines that ensures that there is compliance, and also that the program is delivered in the highest standard and quality. So we have the conditional grant that guides provinces in terms of what needs to be procured in terms of like the indicators and the targets. And we have the financial management guidelines to ensure that provinces adhere to financial compliance in the program, the food specification, stock management, kitchen compliance. But most importantly, we also have the tuck shop and school vendor service provider guidelines. As members know that we had the problem of poisoning of food, so that we ensure that whatever our tuck shops are serving is nutritious, and also to also ensure that we don't have food poisoning in our schools. But also we have the manual on horticulture that we encourage schools to have food guidance. The procurement model, we still have like the two models, which is the centralized, where money is transferred to provinces, and our service providers are awarded with contracts to provide and deliver, procure and deliver food to schools. But we also, which is KZN, Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Western Cape. And we have got the decentralized procurement model, which is implemented by the Eastern Cape, Free State, Northern Cape, and Northwest, where the funds are directly transferred to schools. But just to indicate, Chair, that in both models, they still use the same menu to procure the three fruit groups of food, which is the protein, the starch, and ensure that there is a veg in the meal. In terms of like the reach of the program reaches over 9.4 million learners that receive meals daily, and we are in 20,504 schools, and we have over 61,000 voluntary food handlers that are cooking and serving meals in schools. As you can see in the presentation, that in some of the provinces, like this, the centralized provinces, they have the number of service providers which are provided with Gauteng having 49, 1,700 in KZN, and 181 in Limpopo. And Chair, you can also see that the proportion of the allocation, like KZN, has indicated that they are feeding 5,504 schools, and the number of learners is over 2 million. But when you look at a province like Eastern Cape, where they have 5,504, 2,000, but they also have 12,000 food handlers. And we see that the bigger the province and the more the food handlers. Chair, this is the financial performance of the program in the 25-26 financial year. We're at 100% or 100.9%. And we see that most of the provinces have performed very well, but we see that some are at 99.7, 99.6%. This, Chair, might be caused by some of the unfilled vacancies that we have in provinces, but also the over-expenditure, the slight over-expenditure in some provinces might be due to the accruals that were moved from the previous financial year. And in terms of like the year-on-year increase, we see that the average year-on-year increase is 4.6, and in the 2026-27 financial year, in the Eastern Cape, KZN, and Mpumalanga, Northwest, and Northern Cape, we have above average allocation because this allocation is from the unallocated budget to address the priorities of breakfast and the honoraria and feeding in April period, because these are some of the provinces that had problems in feeding in April in the previous financial year. So they were prioritized in terms of like the increase to ensure that feeding happens in April. So the food handlers are the cornerstone of the NSNP, because this, as indicated in the first slide, that this is a social protection and poverty alleviation strategy. So we have over 62,000 food handlers, almost 62,000 food handlers when we round it off, with a 2-year contract, usually unemployed parents who have learners in the school, and they are community members. Their key role is to prepare, serve meals, and clean the kitchens and manage the food. And they get a minimum stipend of 17.27 rand, which is slightly above the 16.27 rand of the EPWP determination, because the food handlers were employed under that determination, and now we're following the Gazette from Employment and Labor in terms of like the stipends of the voluntary food handlers, which is currently in 2027 sitting at 17.27 rand. So this is the monitoring and evaluation framework of the program, where we ensure that a national conducts monitoring. We target to visit at least visit schools twice per year, and we have provided oversight in 120 schools. That is the plan for next year. In the previous financial year, we visited 110 schools, and we also conduct annual evaluation through the Grant Management Directorate, where we visit at least 20% of the district of selected schools, where we go and also monitor the schools. And provinces, according to the DORA, conduct in 17 districts, they conduct their own evaluation and also their annual performance evaluation, which is consolidated. And Chair, there is an external evaluation that took place in 2015. We have not conducted another national evaluation. We focused on the assessment and the internal evaluations from grants management so far. And then the monitoring and reporting and response methodology that we use, it is used in all 9 provinces to track and manage the performance. We monitor and measure success in the project objectively, and to ensure that we consolidate the data and support the improvement plan. So we have 420 dedicated district officials that conduct the monitoring in provinces, and the aim is to visit a province at least twice a year, and 58,000 monitoring visits will be conducted in this current financial year in the 20,000 schools. And this is a report from the MRR, which is the monitoring report and response monitoring system. So what we report, the key performance indicators, we are looking at the time in which we finished feeding the learners, which is allocated 20 points. We also have 20 points for a balanced meal, where we have starch, protein, and a vegetable. And we also allocate 60 points for the quantity that is prepared, that is the starch, protein, and vegetable. So in terms of like the performance, we see that nationally, we have a province like Limpopo has performed very well at 95.5, with a 1% non-feeding in school, and also just a 4% of not feeding the 3 food groups, which is protein, starch, and the protein. And we can also see that it ranges between, on average, between 1 and 11%, where most of the provinces couldn't provide the full food group, which is where our challenge is currently sitting. And in KZN, there was non-compliance, where resulting in 24% of schools not serving the 3 food groups of starch, protein, and vegetable, so which is the current challenges that we are facing. So in secondary schools, this is the picture for secondary schools on the same, using the same tool to say in secondary schools, we see that Limpopo still shows excellence in ensuring that all in terms of the overall performance. And we also see that now in secondary school, it is between 1 and 13% compared to 1 and 11% in primary schools. And non-compliance on 73 food groups ranges from 5 to 33% in the Northern Cape. So the business plan process, we use the wizard system to ensure that province have the menu to ensure that all 3 food groups are provided. And also we provide a feeding calendar and a database for all the provinces, the protein list which can be procured, and also to ensure what we have done in the current business grant framework. We have also guided provinces to procure 10% of fresh product from small farm holders. And the NSNP school, the wizard also developed the school-specific menu with a number of learners, quantities of food to be prepared to guide provinces, and also the delivery schedule and school-specific budgets. So the success of the program, Chair, as you indicated earlier, to say we also have breakfast, is because of the partnership that we have had with long-standing partners like UNICEF that provides technical support, NEPAD for the technical support on home-grown school feeding, just to mention a few, and Tiger Brands Foundation, who are also, and PepsiCo, who are also supporting schools to provide breakfast in schools, and Unilever, who also provide and also renovate some of the kitchens in the schools that we have. So the major challenges in summer reform, Chair, is that the inefficiencies in management of the NSNP funds and stock control. So in both models, whether the centralized and the decentralized, when we did our monitoring and we consolidated our reports, we have discovered that there are inefficiencies in both models, but there are also successes in both models. Hence, we have realized to say the remedial strategy in terms of like the inefficiencies in management of the funds and stock control is the retraining of the provinces on the financial management and controls. And we are proposing to have work streams that will be dedicated to address these critical deficiencies, especially in the costing of gas, but also in terms of like the actual management of funds as funds are transferred to schools and the procurement. And the poor quality of food supplied to schools, we need to enforce the service level agreements with service providers, because this is one of the challenges where when you come to a school, you find like maybe, for instance, stale vegetables that have been served with, or which are alenas, which also speaks to the storage of food. To say we need to look also at how the food is delivered and how is it stored in our storerooms, and also ensuring that fresh produce is provided. And then there is insufficient training on program implementation, that is finance, procurement, hygiene and food safety, food preparation and horticulture. We are going to develop a standardized training on program implementation that will be addressing all these issues. And in terms of like the kitchen infrastructure, we're working with infrastructure directorate to ensure that when new schools are built, we have kitchens that meet the standards that we were expecting. So what we propose, Chair, in terms of like the reforms, is that we currently operate through both the decentralized, as I indicated, and as I indicated that inefficiencies have been identified in both. So to address these gaps, we are proposing that we need to implement a focused workstream strengthening procurement, governance, digital monitoring, local participation, and therefore improve the efficiency and the quality of delivery. We are proposing 5 work streams. The first one will be focusing on governance and compliance readiness. So we are going to establish reform guidelines where we are going to take the provincial NSNP procurement government framework aligned to the PFMA conditional grant requirements, and we are going to, so that we can ensure that the standards and Auditor General verifications of readiness prior to the rollout. And we also propose that we need to have a workstream that will be looking at systems and operational reforms, which will introduce transparency and operational discipline by deploying digital monitoring system for real-time procurement, delivery and expenditure, and introduce national product catalog to strengthen supplier performance. We are proposing, Chair, that we look at the enterprise resource planning model that is used by business to ensure that we also ensure that we have the third work stream on logistic, warehousing, and food distribution to enforce supply chain excellence, that we establish provincial networks with master warehouse and regional distribution center and improve feedback on last mile delivery to schools and support pack house and distribution, so that we ensure that we don't run out of stock and we don't have non-feeding, and also ensure that the 3 food groups are delivered. And the one but last is the value chain integration and capacity training, where we embed the smallholder farmer and SME participation within the procurement framework. And to just indicate that we have already started discussions with...
As you summarize, Mr. Ndlovu.
Yes, thank you. And then lastly, it says the stabilization of the continuous oversight, that is the institutionalization of the oversight through HEADCOM. Okay. Yes, okay. I think I'm concluding, Chair. Then, in conclusion, the National School Nutrition Program remains one of the South Africa's most critical education sector. By providing daily nutritious meal learners in public school, the NSNP, we contribute to learner health, better concentration in class, increased school attendance as alluded, leading to enhanced performance. But also the program creates employment opportunities, especially to the marginalized group, and both current procurement models have inefficiencies that reforms intend to address and ensure that it achieves its goals in serving nutritious meals to the learners. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ndlovu, and to the department. If that is the presentations, colleagues, honorable members, I am now going to take hands that want to engage with these presentations. Honorable Mkize, Honorable Mgadi, Honorable Kaba and Chaba, Honorable Low, Honorable Shkwambana, Honorable Komani, Honorable Ngobeni, Honorable Yordan, in that order. Honorable Mkize, you'll be the first.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just trying to make sure that I appear. I don't see myself, but I hope I'm appearing that side. Well, I'm also having a little bit of a flu. Mpumalanga was treating us very nice with the potholes and the speeding and all that of our vehicles, but it is somewhat. Minister, I will start with your question after greeting you, your team, and everybody present. And attend your opening statement, Minister. I think one needs to pay attention to it because you are saying this exercise is not just about checking the activities, the priorities and all that, the indicators, but it's also about checking the alignment with national priorities. I think I agree with you, but with an understanding that that should not minimize the role of other contributive factors that you also highlighted. I want to show you, Minister, that this is a very important exercise, the APP review, and I think yours one that you just presented, if reading the actual document, not just the presentation, which omitted some details, is actually very, very misguided, misplaced, and disconnected from reality, and even disconnected from itself. I'll start with the SWOT analysis you conducted, Minister, in that actual APP, not just the presentation. And I want to say first, I appreciate that you did SWOT analysis. That's very important to do, particularly if you're doing APP. But under strength, in your SWOT analysis, you mentioned financial controls as your strength. But under weaknesses, you mentioned financial and supply chain management controls as your weaknesses. So you're mentioning one thing, both in strengths and weaknesses, the financial controls. And for me, it says it was quite a very disconnected process that we were running. Very, very disjointed. You can't mention something as a strength and at the same time you see it as weakness. And for me, it's important because this was SWOT analysis you're conducting. You should have been very thorough in it, because if you fail in doing proper SWOT analysis, the whole plan will be misguided, misinformed, and will be having very unfounded strategies that are placed against the real threats on the ground. Under strengths, you also mentioned unqualified audit as your strength. But you are omitting that there were findings in your audit reports. And for me, it's a problem because it means you are not taking the findings that were made by the HE seriously. If you see your financial controls as a strength, at the same time, unqualified audit alone, you see them as strength, but you don't want to face the reality that there were audit findings, which you need to address and correct, such as huge billions of rands under irregular expenditure. So it's worrying for me that when you plan, you omit the weaknesses already identified. If you look at your analysis, you availability of planning data as your threat or as your weakness. But the very same thing is listed under your risk in the very same plan. If you go read risk, you find unavailable or poor planning data as a risk, but it doesn't appear under the weaknesses. What's logic here? What's your logic? How do you differentiate between risk and threats? And how do risks do not become threats? So for me, it says it wasn't an honest process being undertaken here by people who are really putting their minds to find the rot and fix it. It reads like a box ticking exercise for me. And opportunities. How the GNU is a strength of this department? You mentioned GNU as a strength of this department, as an opportunity actually, of this department. How does GNU become an opportunity? Because this is the Department of Education. GNU is cutting budget for this department, and the budget cuts are killing the department. But at the same time, you see the same GNU as an opportunity. So it's worrying, Minister, because some logic must be shown here. Why not seeing budget increases as an opportunity? Since the problems of the department are caused by
Chair, I don't know if it's just us. We're losing Honorable Mkhize. Very bad.
I am also losing Honorable Mkhize. We can't hear you properly. You are breaking.
The severe situation happening now in the department. Because we can all agree here. Oh, thank you. Honorable continues. And the opportunities, you are putting the GNU as an opportunity, but the same GNU is cutting the budget for the department, and it kills the department. So how does it become an opportunity? Why not seeing budget increases, Minister, as an opportunity to fix the department? Because lots of your problems, they come from budget cuts. So why don't you see the very same weakness as an opportunity? If should it be changed, should the behavior, the appetite change, and we start seeing more budget being put into the department, why don't you see that such budget increases would be opportunity for your department to perform better? Why employing more teachers is not also seen as an opportunity, Minister? Because right now we have huge staff gaps. You are trying hard to implement the Bella Act, but the budget cuts are killing you. We have no language teachers sufficiently employed in the department. You have overcrowding of classes, which is indicative of shortage of teachers. Why are you not seeing this as an opportunity to improve the pedagogical outcomes? So it is worrying, Minister. Under threats, I want to put to you, Minister, that lack of planning data remains a threat. Please treat it as such. Budget slaughtering remains a threat. Please put it as such. Dilapidated school infrastructure is both a threat and the greatest hazard. Please see it as such. Lack of educators remains a threat. At least pedagogically, not politically. At least pedagogically, it's a threat. Treat it as such. Delayed delivery of insufficient LTSM is a threat. Some schools still don't have the textbooks and other LTSMs that are required. It's a threat because the core business of your department is improving pedagogical outcomes. So if you do not see harming factors to the same pedagogical outcomes as threats, who should see them as threats? If you go to the theory of change, Minister,
as you wrap up, Honorable Mkhize,
I must say that
give
I
other
must say
members an opportunity, because there's about
okay,
8
I
minutes.
hear you, Chair.
Yes, please.
Okay. And the theory of change, Minister, I must say it was slightly promising. But when I read management as part of theory of change, because a lot of issues you have, what you call consequence management, for people who are failing to monitor and manage the departments. You could have been more emphatic on the improved data management systems. You could have improved budget allocations. It should be part of the theory of change as well. The improved budget allocations, because a lot of problems come from budget. Last two, improved scholar transport should be part of the theory of change in terms of creating access to education. We know many people are not having access to basic education because of poor transport services. Lastly, assumptions are exposing the current weaknesses, not considering in the SWOT analysis. So the assumptions made there are really worrying, Minister. I'll urge you to go back and look at your APP and try to connect the theory of change with priorities, with strategies, and also look at the indicators which are not showing, particularly for infrastructure, school infrastructure. You are estimating 49 billion over 3 years, but yourself, you stated that the gap is 140 billion rands, not 49 billion rands. So how do you deal with it? Because even this medium-term expenditure framework is not covering the 140 billion gap under school infrastructure. You are only covering 49 billion. So who should deal then with the 90 billion gap that yourself you have acknowledged in the department? So this APP for me is flawed. It needs a redo. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mgadi.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'd like to take this opportunity to greet all honorable members of the Portfolio Committee and greeting all protocol of them. Chairperson, the department over the medium term, the department projects or forecast is totally allocation to grow from 38 billion to 42 billion. Although budget allocation for the department is expecting to grow, it is important to determine if this represents genuine gain for school or simple nominally increases. Do the figure factor in inflation and raising enrollment? If not, what is the actually per capital change in spending year on year? This will be better show the impact of the supposed increased. Another thing, over the medium term, the teachers, education, human resource, and institutional development program is expected to see a reduction of about 3,000 million. This is particularly concerning as it's relative that teacher support, recruitment, and training. This may have a direct impact on the quality of teachers the department is placing in classroom, staff shortages in schools, and the overall quality of education. Chairperson, considering the persisting challenges of overcrowded classroom, the department continuously failed to fill vacant posts and the urgent need to improve teaching standard in literacy and numeracy in the foundational phase, and the science and the mathematics in the intermediate and the senior phase. How do you justify a 300 million cut, and whether the department exploit alternative means to prevent such as reduction? Additionally, Chairperson, how will the department ensure that teacher training and development is not affected by such a reduction? Unfortunately, Deputy Minister akekho la kule platform njengamanje, but two things become clear. The department dramatically reduced its allocation on the payment for capital assets, and we also see serious budget reductions for education infrastructure grant. This in simple terms means that there will be little to no investment into infrastructure projects. The department will significantly decrease expenditure on long-term assets, such as building and upgrading school. Chairperson, on the 10th of March this year, in this committee, the Deputy Minister acknowledged that to accommodate the new influx of learners in current year alone will mean that approximately 20 to 30 new schools need to be built. How do we reconcile these facts with the significant decline in expenditure on infrastructure? We are essentially keeping children out of school simply because there are no new school or classroom being built. and further straining existing resource and contributing to overcrowding in classes. This against the fact that there is already a national block of around 140 billion on infrastructure is a crisis of great magnitude. How is the department planning to address this issue? Another thing, Chair, the presentation indicates that over the medium term expenditure or allocations or on goods and services, it's set to increase marginally. However, when you carefully analyze this, one notices that the allocation for this line item does not return to the allocation in 2025 to 2026, which was 3 billion. It drops by 800 million in peaks at 2.7 billion in 2027 and 2027. Umbuzo wami la, Chairperson, department, can you please clarify to this committee what is meant by goods and service? What specific areas will be impacted by this drastic decline? I mean, 800 million decrease is not something we can overlook, notwithstanding a recovery of about 600 million in the medium term. Nearly 300 million is still shaved off from this item. Ngiye lapha kwi-presentation ye-natural program, nutrition program.
As you wrap, Honorable Mgadi.
Sorry, Chairperson.
As you wrap up.
Okay, I will wrap up. Okay. Department, NSNP. Has the department conducted a comparative analysis of these two models to assess their cost-benefit ratio, administrative efficiency, effectiveness in the achieving objects and overall performance? If so, what were the results? And finally, would you consider implementing one unfilled or standardized model across the province based on the results of such a study? Chairperson, in fact, that there were some provinces that simply could not provide meal to school is very concerning. This coupled with the fact that provinces are overspending on their allocated budget. It's a serious red flag for the department. Let's take, for instance, KZN, which is the biggest beneficiary of the NSNP, not being able to provide meals to even 1% of the school means thousands of school-going children, and even up hundreds of thousands are thembele kulokudla. It seems that the rates at which provinces are spending their allocation is not translating in effective service delivery. They're going above budget, but delivered nothing. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mgadi. In that order, honorable members.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister and Deputy Minister, the department, honorable members in the platform. Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, let me start with the nutrition schools program. Chairperson, the department seems to be regressing in the administration of the NSP, and this borders on the country's ambition of quality fee-free education. This is of great concern, precisely because we live in the country
engulfed by poverty, whereby 60% of the population is reportedly to live below the poverty line. Sadly, KZN, Eastern Cape and Limpopo are the most affected provinces, yet KZN continue to demonstrate a high degree of inefficiency in the NSP. Okay. The policy implementation and the delivery failure. My question is that what consequences are imposed on provinces and officials where schools reportedly fail to provide meals despite receiving full budget allocation? Can the department provide a province by province breakdown of schools that did not feed learners for more than 5 consecutive days during the financial year? What immediate contingency mechanism exists when schools fail to feed learners, especially in poor rural community where NSP is often the only guaranteed meal? Has the department assessed the impact of repeatedly failure to provide meals to learners on schools attendance? Chair, let me go to the let me go to the APP. The APP, sorry, Chair. The APP, Chair, APP planning, financial management, and the institutional capacity. In light of resources constraints, how will the department ensure that financially and human resource capacity support the achievement of program outcomes and safeguard against service delivery failures? Why has the target for resolving misconduct cases reported remained static since the 2022-2023 financial years? And what is the annually average number of cases reported? Thank you, Chairperson.
No, thanks very much, Chair. Chair, I will not continue to sustain the video due to the fact that my network is quite traumatic. But I must applaud and say that Mam Qaba, nice glasses that you are wearing. Chair, let me start by engaging on the annual performance plan of the basic education, because one could say that they demonstrate indeed a concise alignment with the policies of the current government, especially in making sure that they advance the key objectives of transformation, equity, and redress. And they continue to dismantle all barriers for our learners to access education, notably the APP priority that is central to the early childhood development. We must commend the department in the progress they are making. And we should also speak on to the foundational literacy, numeracy, inclusive education, and other school infrastructure backlog challenges that therefore confront. So I would not want to waste much of the time because the chair would have seen that on program one, chair, when you look onto the program one, you would realize that the number of targets has been static since 2022-23. And it is quite concerning when you look on page 46 of the program one on table 11. And then it is quite enormous that the department ought to present the information in percentage based on the total number of cases. I think it is quite important that the format must not draw conclusion and give clear image as to what transpires. And when you look on to your program two, you will see that on page 51, table 14, indicator 2.110, the number of schools targeted for monitoring evaluation in the province, monitoring in the provinces, this would illustrate the degree of impact the target would mind to make. For instance, the department has done as based on what they've presented. So I'm highlighting all of this because when we come to these meetings, we come quite prepared to engage before we dwell into questions. And then the first question that one would want to ask on program one is that in light of resource constraints, how will the department ensure that the financial and human resource capacity support the achievement of program outcomes and safeguard against service delivery failures? And then why was the target for resolving misconduct cases reported remained static since the 22-23 financial year? And what is the annual average of the number of cases that we are confronted with? So I'm pacing these so that we ought to understand as to what is presented to us. Does it seek to present the true indication and reflection of how we would want to continue to deal with these particular issues? And then I would also want to know, Chair, what interventions, improvements, and accountability outcomes. Now, the other one on program one, which is the last one, given the topical HR recruitment irregularity, while ICT systems and data governance reforms contribute to outcome of improved data integrity, reliability, and evidence-based decision-making, we would want to know, will ICT systems and data governance reforms contribute to the outcome of improved data integrity, reliability, and evidence-based decision-making body? And then we went to deliberate on issues, and in most instances the issue that one would want to know is that in addition to the provision of the monitoring of the learning supporting material, if members would have touched it, how is the accuracy of the data provided enable quick response to ensure improved educational outcomes across quintiles, more especially 1 and 3, because we know the disparities and the confrontational challenges that are confronted with? And what are the specific interventions that are being implemented to address the disparities in the curriculum delivery between rural and urban schools? And how will these translate into measurable improvements as it's owed to the educator shortage and skill development that we take note of? So these are the on, because one is clarified on other issues as they are repetitive in going forward. And is there tangible evidence that suggests that the increased number of participants and stakeholders reach to raise awareness towards ending schools-related grade-based violence, gender-based violence, and how does it ensure that contact time is not lost with regard to that? I would want to know that do we have tangible evidence that suggests that increased number of participants and stakeholders reached to raise awareness towards ending awareness towards gender-based violence, and how does it ensure that we deal with such? So I'm raising all of this, Chair, because they're quite concerning. And on the APPs, on the infrastructural part, 50.4 billion is allocated to school infrastructure over the MTF period. I would want to know how many schools are expected to benefit from this allocation. And also the infrastructure backlogs grant will be incorporated into the educational infrastructure grant 2026-27. What accountability mechanism will ensure that provinces complete the remaining backlog projects, and how far are we in terms of progress with regard to that? And what measures are in place to prevent underspending and delays in the infrastructure project? Because it is quite important, because the department, in most instances, when we speak of infrastructure and the budget, it is quite concerning, because they will say that they would not have a particular way. So lastly, Chair, as I be mindful of the time, the school nutrition program receives a 3.9 billion over the medium term. How does the department ensure that meals provided meet nutritional standards? And what many monitoring mechanisms or systems are in place to prevent corruption and irregularities in school feeding schemes? And how does the department evaluate the relationship between school nutrition and then attendance performance so that we're able to measure as to does it make impact? Because one could have seen last time it does make serious impact with regard to that. And we know the 9.9 million as they've increased from 9 million to 9.9. I wish to submit and give the other members a chance. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and
Thank you,
greetings.
Honorable Low. In that order, honorable members.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's me following Honorable Law. Greetings to yourself, colleagues, the Minister, and the staff of the department that are present here today in this meeting. Chair, I will just go straight to the issue that I want to raise based on the presentation and the report that we received today. Chair, the grade R teachers in the province of the Free State are experiencing a lot of challenges from their employer, which is the Department of Basic Education. They were actually promised to be absorbed into the mainstream upon completion of their qualification, which is the Bachelor of Education Foundation phase. And however, for the past 5 years, there is no such absorption as we speak now. And we are all well aware that according to the 2026-2027 budget speech that was presented by the minister, there is an allocation for equalization to grade R educators. However, the tax team in the province of the Free State were called them to a meeting on the 9th of April 2026, where the head of the department, which is Advocate Mulekwane, told them that there are no allocation from the budget. And he further indicated that that was an oversight from the MEC in the province and the minister in respective. So I just get worried because we are dealing with the 2026-2027 budget allocations and the APPs. So I want to understand from the minister and the department and the DG here to say, do we have allocations that are allocated for the grade R teachers who may have completed their studies and they should be absorbed into the mainstream teaching? Because what we get from the Free State is that the department in the province itself says there's no such allocation that comes from the minister. So I just want to get from the department and the minister, do we have such allocation that needs to absorb these grade R educators who may have completed their studies to be absorbed and be taken into the mainstream? And if there is such allocation, how much? Not only for Free State, I'm now speaking in overall for all provinces across the country. How much is such allocation and why there is that delay as we speak now for 5 years where these grade R teachers are not yet absorbed even after completing their studies as required by the very same department and the ministry that they should develop themselves and improve themselves so that they can better teach our grade R learners. The other issue that I want to speak on is on the nutrition program. I think we need to be honest to ourselves. I see the beautiful presentation that is here before us, where we are speaking of 100% in terms of the provision of nutrition in our schools. But the reality of the matter is that when we do oversight and go to these schools, and I will mention some of the provinces that I've actually went to, your Northwest, I experienced the same thing that I'm about to speak up to now, your Limpopo, and of course, Mpumalanga. Let me give example, Minister and DG. In a school where there are 1,500 learners, for example, the department is able to cater for 1,200 learners. There is a portion of 300 learners that are excluded that are not catered for by the department. And to that reason, the food that is being provided to these schools is provided excluding of the 300 that is not directly funded or included on the nutrition program from the department and the ministry itself. So when we speak of 100% provision, 100% achievements, and all those type of things, I ask myself, but are we really giving correct presentations here? Okay, it's fine. Let me agree to say maybe the 100% is based on what you have provided. Of course, we have provided 100%, but can we have an account of how many learners that are excluded from this nutrition program? Because we do have such learners in our schools where they are not part of this nutrition program, and teachers and the principals in the school, they compromise and actually make sure that they even feed learners less because they want to also include this other remaining number that is not actually catered for. So I don't hear anything in the report that speaks of the number of learners that, of course, the department could not cater for, but they're there in the schools. They are registered in the schools. They wake up in the morning, go to schools. They wake up in the morning, see other learners being catered for, and they are eating and they are not eating if there's no means that the school and the principals of the particular school may have actually came about. So I want to understand from the department to say, are we really giving the correct stats here? Are we really giving the correct reports here when we speak of 100%? When for fact of the matter is that we know that there are schools that there are learners that are not catered for in the nutrition program. Can we have an account of those learners? How many across the country do you have? And what are the plans of the department into making sure that everyone who's registered in the school, everyone who's a learner in any school that is actually our public schools, that is actually under Department of Basic Education, is being catered for? Because we do have those people who are not being catered for. Thank you very much, Chair.
Ga ke tšee sebaka se ke le tamiši modulasetulo ke nagana gore ga ke go gate di-cons go ya la ke itše ke ithaeditše o itše wa re ke latela leadership as kwambane ke laetše gore maina a ka botlalo ke Mashiadi ka Lancel Komane ke romile ke economic freedom fighters ke tšee sebaka se ke le tamišeng ka moka bana ba kgoši ke tamiši ministera ke tamiši ba department ya gagwe ka moka ka go šiašiana ke se ke ka ba ka lebala ba mphato ke dumele gore modimo ke sebata modimo wa kgona a dira meeting wa lekgono e sa lekgole gore e be Zoom ka go rialo nka be re te khwetša re ruputla ka gare ga lephotho la mekgohlwane mo re be tlogo ba re tloga le rena e re tsene ka go rialo bana ba kgoši ke lahlela le gonyana ke rawa speed recovery on your flu standard ka mosoga leboa le bolela gabotse modulasetulo le bao e le gore ba amile ke flu ya Mpumalanga bjalo ka bokopana ga ke re di-presentation šedi mo pela ga rena re a di leboga ke tlo di tumelela gore ke tsene go presentation ya bobedi ka re go ne e dijo ka mogare bjalo ke tla tsena ka fao dijong ke nyake go tseba tše pedi tše tharo para pele ga fao ga ke laetše gore ke leboge ntate Mahata ge a respondile go kgopelo go sello sa rena ka pela but ke duma go fetiša kgopelo go ba potšišo go our minister. Here we have a problem of the scholar transport that has its original chameleon colors. If it's hot, there is transport. If it's cold, there is no scholar transport. In KZN, Abatulus sub-region, we resolved the issue, I think it's last year, about the suspension of the scholar transport. Then our children got the transport. But now it comes back We just want to know what is it is influencing that the fluctuation of that transport going in, going out, going in, check out. Please help us about that. We want to know, because the children of our Tulus, they are walking long distances. That you have resolved, but it's going back to its roots. What caused that? Why you don't see it coming? And then ke tle ka mo go presentation ya bobedi. Presentation ya bobedi ke ya e rata ebile e ntšwetse mogola godimo ga tše dingwe tše re dula gore di bolela. Ebile ke be ke duma go tseba gore who packaged this, because e na le element ya understanding in our country. And on the other hand, I like it because it is dealing with the understanding of the outgoing professor who doesn't understand if agriculture is needed in our schools. I like the section that have been read, like they are also willing to have gardens in school, in which is doing contrary with the understanding of the outgoing professor, that he didn't even see the importance that the gardens are needed. I like the person who come with this idea. He must be, he or she must know is my professor and the real one. Then on the point of that gardens, I just want to ask the very same person, where do you think that gardens must come from, or must be done by whom and how and where? As far as on your tablings, we don't recognize agriculture, especially on the lower level, in which if you were doing it, our children should have been doing their own food security and sustaining themselves. And then to at least solve the other thing that Commissioner Squampan have just raised, that there is some children who are not allocated on the budget of nutrition at schools. Then so the other question that I want to know is that I want to know from the Department of Basic Education, everyone can answer. I don't direct it to anyone, to a specific person. What is a kitchen? If a kitchen is something, what elements that a kitchen must be consist of? We want to know what is a kitchen? How must it look like? And where have they see, or where have they saw a kitchen? Can they just get a picture of the thing they called a school kitchen and come with it in this committee to show us? We desperately want to know what is a kitchen, because it is a very shame in our schools when we do oversize. For an example, I was there at Ephraim Mogale for oversight at Mayatlali Secondary School. I saw something that our parents are cooking for our children inside it. I didn't even know what is that, because it really shows where we come from as Black people, that we were living under the trees, hiding in the rocks. Then so it shows that if you look in the cooking place, I don't know if it's that kitchen they're talking about. If you look at our cooking place, it is really disgracing. But I wish somebody will answer my question as what is the kitchen? And you must tell us with what it consists of to make it a kitchen. And then where have you saw it? And how does it look like? Print the picture. And then the other thing again, we want to understand the thing of top shop, school vendors and service provider guidelines. We are requesting, take that thing of guidelines to the schools, because some of your principal are owning tuck shops. We don't know if they have been guided by your guidelines to own tuck shop inside the schools, to run the business, forgetting about our children. Then so we must come to the board whereby we must make it clear what or how is that guideline of yours? Is it your schools complying with your guidelines, or they are just doing as they wish, as we saw that they've implemented their own guidelines? We want a help from you. My last one, Chairperson, is that on page 20, the very same second presentation of nutrition program, page 20, I saw a very nice, beautiful picture. I just want to know which school is that? Where is that school? Which province? I need an address. I want to go to that school. As if we want to visit that school to find out if that dressing is possible. Because that miracles we see in our schools when our children are going for breakfast and lunch, it's something that the Department of Basic Education, they should have brought it here. Not this fancy thing that we don't have in our provinces, like Limpopo, KZN, and Freistata. We don't have that. Why do you take this beautiful one? You come here to deceive us, to make us children that we will only be able to robala. We need the West of the West, that you will at least apply your vocabulary there and then improve it. Don't just bring this one. But this one, I need the address. I want to go there. I want to see this thing happening. Or they have just arranged our children to make picture, bring that old mama there to make sure that today they eat meat. I've never saw a meat in any a school in my province. Unless maybe this Model C1 is always nawa ke mechacha dipinetše tše dingwe ka maswi nama senga ke bona name ba itšere kae gona ke ya eng ke ya kgomo gore ke ya tholo ka go rialo modulasetulo ga ke re phala tša mona marula di ya e fela ga se tsona ka moka di yago tše dingwe di ya šala di tula dikoko ga ke tšee sebaka se ke se bušetše go wena mongaka ke re selepe go mere ke ya go leboga.
Honorable Komani, Honorable Yordan was next, and then there was also Honorable Ngobeni and Honorable Magagula. Honorable Yordan.
Thank you, Chair. I thought there might be translation services for what Honorable Komani had just asked. Chairperson, while the APP reflects strong alignment with national priorities, it raises concerns about implementation, accountability, and fiscal realism. And as the Minister had mentioned, what we would want to see is that these plans are transformative rather than aspirational, and that real outcomes are actually achievable through the department's efforts. We support the strong focus on literacy, numeracy, and early learning outcomes, as Honorable Lowe had also mentioned. Seen in the APP, consistently backing these outcomes will continue to bolster our collective focus on the literacy crisis, ensuring that more learners are able to read for meaning by grade 4, and this should be welcomed with open arms. Something that needs improved regulation in early learning is not only the measurement and improvement of quality ECD practitioners, but also the vetting and quality management that's applicable to educators in later years. And this we are more and more kind of coming across in the education system in ECD. How will the department move towards improving quality management in the longer term for ECD practitioners? What's the department's position on the measurement of actual learner outcomes versus the heavy emphasis that's being placed on outputs for the system, like training plans and visits, for example? Are they measuring that these plans are actually impactful? Chair, what is the department's position on policy expansion, which is welcomed, versus the actual fiscal support backing this expansion? Will the support in ECD and STEM subjects be met with realistic financial backing? When it comes to school safety, we're aware that at least in Gauteng, funds for over 270, I think if I recall correctly, 274 security personnel was cut by that department. And according to them, this was in high priority areas due to budget constraints. With ongoing school safety risks and horrific crime stats relating to school safety, how will the National Department measure and ensure that the National School Safety Framework and the Safe Schools Protocol is implemented by provinces, and what the impact of this is on the safety of learners in schools? During oversight, Chair, I've realized that several schools were unable to respond to how many of their educators are actually registered with SACE. And we've seen that many educators are not, in fact, adequately qualified in South African schools across provinces to be registered with SACE, with principals not actually even having this information at hand when questioned. This not only directly affects learning outcomes, but also teacher conduct, providing improved accountability and vetting teachers to safeguard learners from persons that have been convicted of sexual and other offenses. What are the department's targets on improving and regulating registration and vetting of teachers? And will the department consider explicit targets on teacher vetting, misconduct management, and other measures of professional accountability? Infrastructure provision, Chair, at a provincial level and realistic and prioritization of this is a real problem. As we speak, there's a school in Midrand that's being shut down by parents for poor conditions that learners are subjected to. We welcome the consistency with which the infrastructure and infrastructure backlogs are financially met with, but question how the department will measure the outcome of this financial backing if provincial departments are not sufficiently monitoring and prioritizing infrastructure delivery where this is most urgently required. Perhaps the department can respond to us on that. Then on the NSNP chairperson, while the NSNP is critical and commendable in scale, there's a key concern whether the system is reliable, corruption resistant, and consistently delivering meals to every child every day. And it's quite astonishing the number of learners that are reached by this program in a day. And it remains absolutely imperative to address the malnutrition crisis that our country is faced with and supporting learning. Through our oversight across the country, we've seen this program employing food handlers, encouraging self-sustainability through food gardens, and generally, as you said in your opening remarks, being welcomed by school management. Infrastructure is a real problem. Kitchens are often inadequate and not living up to compliance standards. How will the department measure improvement in this? In the presentation, we see that 24% of schools are not serving the required food groups, and there's up to 33% non-compliance in the Northern Cape, a province which is stricken by poverty in many of its corners. And despite 420 officials actually monitoring schools, they're still struggling to feed learners and meet nutritional standards that the department is requiring. And the solution to this is to introduce a national product catalog, strengthen supplier performance monitoring, establish provincial networks with master warehouses and regional distribution centers. This is what can be seen in the presentation. And then also the department is referring to improved feedback on last mile delivery to schools, supported by pack houses and distribution networks. My first question on this is what the timeline is for implementation thereof, and in fact for the implementation of the reform that's outlined in the presentation. And how will the master warehouses and distribution centers actually work in provinces where this program is not centralized and this is realistically backed by funds to make the reforms workable? The solutions that are being presented by the department, Honorable Chair, I think requires further explanation. Has the department and have the provincial departments expanded or accounted for the expansion of the NSNP with consideration that schools are now moving towards being required to offer grade R, meaning an increase in learners and resources that are being stretched thinner. And then lastly, Chairperson, I commend the partnerships that have been mentioned by the representative in the department. And we've seen that where schools are entering into local partnerships, nutrition is really supported. And this often relies on leaders and exemplary leadership at a school level, where school principals are going out of their way to identify partnerships that they can enter into in their communities. How can the department further support schools to enter into partnerships to strengthen their nutrition programs over and above the allocation and monitoring that's mentioned here today? Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Honorable Ngobeni.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I was waiting for you to cue me. I'm also not in a very good position to keep my video on. It says my network is unstable. So with your indulgence, I will ask that I also not keep it on so I don't stutter in my remarks. Thank you. No, so firstly, I think the committee is somewhat unanimous in terms of its reading and receipt of the reports that have been presented. I think that in terms of the targets that have been set, across access and learning outcomes, and also learner supports, particularly the expansion of ECD, that speaks to over the 1 million children. My only worry there is that if the target speaks to improve retention so that 90% of learners progress from grade 1 to grade 9, what are we saying then about the 10% that is remaining in a way of retention? Surely we should be trying to retain 100% of school learners throughout the value chain so that nobody is left behind. And so I would like to get some response to that. I also want to just appreciate the report. I think aspirationally it reads very well, and also the presentation reads very well. But I think what we are interested in here is quality. We understand quantitatively that the report speaks to all sorts of targets being met and some not being met. But there's a couple of inherent contradictions, and of course it's a complicated space, so there will always be some sense of contradictions, but I think we should highlight them so that we can improve this, because I think this is basic education is a very, very important department towards the progression of the nation. And so while the APP is presenting a very nice coherent policy story, I just want to highlight the contradictions that I think, or I have observed, Chairperson, to be weakening its credibility when it's read against the targets that have been set. And I think my colleagues, all the way from Honorable Mkhize to Honorable Komane, speaks to this, including Honorable Jordan. Firstly, the APP emphasizes improved literacy and numeracy. And I think Honorable Mkhize was trying to speak to this, that however, most indicators primarily measure monitoring activity rather than learner performance. And I say this one because the assertion that having had implemented the breakfast in the NSNP, I think we can commend that. But why? How are we? How are we believing that that is primarily responsible for improvement? I mean, surely it takes much more than just feeding a child for them to be able to perform very well in school. And so I would like to get a response to that, because the system prioritizes outcomes, and we understand that, but only measures effort in this regard. So I would like to get a sense of this, because for me, this is a concern. And also the NSNP speaks to this 9.4, 9.5 million students that have been reached in terms of the provision of school nutrition. But what happens to the balance? What is the balance if we're speaking about 20,000 schools? What about the balance of the 5,000 or so schools? Are we assuming that those are able to take care of themselves? Can we please close that gap and understand what is happening there? And then, of course, the strong push to expand ECD access and improve infrastructure. The MTEF reflects reductions in capital assets and pressure on infrastructure systems. So how is the system expected to grow while parts of its physical and financial base are constrained? That is observation number 3. It's my second, maybe 3 more to go. The other question that I have, Chairperson, is, is it possible, given the climate currently in the country, that the department can make an effort to, in supplementing, these reports and perhaps maybe right now be able to respond to the number of children in our schools who are undocumented. And in this regard, I'm speaking to children born of South African parents but have struggled to get documentation, and how does that impact their ability to function in schools? Because we are receiving a lot of queries from children in this particular category. And then, of course, the number of children born of illegal undocumented parents. We do have a couple of cases, and I can say one case in point of a young girl called Matsiye who's born here in South Africa, but now both parents have died, and she's got no access to any of those to be helped in any way, to be able to be documented, which is a problem that she's currently facing. Of course, the Department of Home Affairs is very much involved in this, but her ability to progress outside of matric post that, what is the department doing about children who are in this type of a predicament? I want to follow on from, I think it's Honorable Jordan, who spoke to the issues of the well-being of children in schools. I'm thinking here about particularly the Northern Cape. The report does not capture very much around what happens in situations where and the impact of drugs in schools, because we do have this issue. The Northern Cape is a case in point that one has actually seen physically, where there are teachers who put themselves on the line to be able to protect children from going into these puzzle shops and buying what they're calling the big, so the big pen. It's called the big, which is laced with drugs, as opposed to a normal big pen, and that is affecting learner performance. So I'm marrying this particular question to the school nutrition program to say, because there's breakfast, then there's improved learner performance. What is the impact of our children being able to access drugs and then go into school and passing by this puzzle shop, as opposed to going straight from the taxi into the classroom or into school? How do those two correlate with one another? And this is why I asked the earlier question around improved performance because of the school nutrition program. I absolutely support the assertions by Honorable Komani around agriculture in schools. I think that point was well made by him. I won't belabor that much more. And then the second last question I have to ask, Honorable Chair, and I'm almost done. Honorable Komani asked a very important question around what is a kitchen, because I think members will remember when we were in Limpopo, I mean, we came across absolutely horrific conditions as to where our children's meals are being prepared, literally on the floor, no hygiene. Everything is filthy, from the dishcloths to absolutely everything. And so what is a model kitchen in terms of the infrastructure in a school. I think Honorable Komani asked that question very well. My final question, Chair, has to do with this latest scandal with regards to Lighthouse Publishers. We've seen this movie before when there was the Limpopo textbook saga, where children were quite impacted by that particular set of circumstances. What has been the mitigating factors? What will be the impact of this investigation on the programs in school in terms of the ability for textbooks to reach the schools? Is there a plan? And I'm not going into the investigation because I know that is ongoing and we're still going to have a separate meeting, but I just want to get a sense from the department as to what is it that they're doing to ensure that this does not negatively or adversely impact the learning and teaching to go on. I think I will leave it there, Chairperson. Suffice it to say that we still have a lot of young learners who are not currently in school at all. What is the department doing about that? Because that is also a very grave concern that we have, given the people who are reaching out to find out how is it that the department is not being able to accommodate them to date. Thank you, Chair. My questions end there.
Thank you, Honorable Ngobeni. Next was Honorable Makakula.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairperson. I think I'm covered by Member Situganelo and Member Aba. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Makakula. Did I leave out anyone? Okay. I'm also covered by the comprehensive questions that were asked. A few things for me I just want to get. The first one is, what is the policy of the department, LTSM policy, as it relates to textbooks? Does the department have a policy of learners sharing textbooks? Does the department know that that is the common practice in the entire Mpumalanga province, where we have learners? The fact that they have to share textbooks is very difficult for them, because they are able to do certain work. They are to utilize textbooks at home for additional studying because they have to share textbooks. And the province confirmed to us the practice across the entire province is that the policy of the department, when you say to us, there has been a top up and and a province has purchased or has covered 100% of the LTSM, what do you mean? Do you mean that learners share? So I want to understand that part. The second clarity I want to get, because in this APP, that is also another issue, where the department is going to be coming to us and saying provinces have at 100% in terms of LTSM, in terms of textbooks, in terms of, as when you go to the ground, is a different story. The second question or clarity that I want to get, it's on the issue of infrastructure. So we've had questions about the state of infrastructure in our schools, and we did acknowledge that there were different provinces that were conducting infrastructure conditional assessments. I just want to know, how far are we with those conditional assessments? Because those conditional assessments can at least be able to tell us with an updated information, because we did get some form of an information from the department, but we as the committee even said to yourselves that we don't trust that information you're giving us in terms of the state of infrastructure because we believed it was not updated. So my question is, when are you getting the conditional assessment outcomes of the provinces on infrastructure so that we know exactly what are the gap, how big how big is the gap, because we see that there is a huge gap on the ground in terms of school infrastructure when we go and conduct oversight. The third clarity I want to get is this one. Is the department proposing to centralize the feeding at a national level? Is that what the department wants to do? Just tell us that, like, clearly what you want to do. So do you want to centralize the national school feeding program at a national level where the head office is the one that procures the food, distributes, transport the products that the children are eating? If that is the case, you need to really tell us, how do you plan to do that? How do you plan to do that? And when you come to us with that plan, if that is your plan, also tell us how many small medium entrepreneurs are currently in the system and how many of them will lose that opportunity. Yeah, I think that is just what I want to know. It's as clarity. I will hand over to the Minister for responses. Is the Minister still in the meeting, colleagues?
Chairperson, I have been disconnected. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Minister.
I'm not on my device. For some reason, I've been kicked out of the meeting. I don't know if I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Minister. You can continue.
All right. All right. Excellent. Firstly, I want to just thank the members for their great engagement. A lot of some of the things that have been raised here are issues, obviously, that we are aware of, but also it does help that that as you go around the country doing your oversight visits, that we are able to essentially get a sense of on the ground experience about these concerns. A number of members have raised, I think it was Honorable Komani, it was Honorable Jordan, and a couple of other members have raised the issue of kitchens in schools. And I want to first outright and say, yes, this has been something that we are targeting with our infrastructure, particularly the infrastructure grants going to our provinces. I can agree with you that not all of the kitchens in particular are in a good condition. A lot of them are classrooms that have been converted into kitchens, and as a result, we are also very much wanting to partner with private sector companies who can help us do some school nutrition kitchens. So, firstly, I think that's something that we need to acknowledge, because the fiscal reality is that most of the time provinces will prioritize things like, for instance, expanding classrooms or dealing with ablution facilities. But as we are eradicating the backlog, we definitely need the backlog of sanitation projects. We definitely need to have a particular focus on kitchens. Then the other issue around the other pressures facing the sector, firstly, I think is the fiscal reality. Honorable Mkhize says that why don't you invest more money into the sector? Honorable member, I think it's important maybe to perhaps take a step back. The step back being that over the past decade, the sector has been underfunded significantly. And the reason being is that there have been different choices that have been made where investment has gone into other things, into bailing SOEs, into other priorities. And as a result, provinces have had to really absorb the pressure of underfunding for over 10 years. And this is now the culmination of that underfunding that we are seeing. Yes, there are some real issues or where there are provinces where there is mismanagement or poor budgeting processes and the like, but most of them actually are under a lot of pressure because of the fact that there's been underfunding. So you ask, why don't we just put more money into the sector? The truth of the matter is, in fact, the DG, myself, and the CFO and others went through a very intensive process where we had to look at the budget and see where we would need to cut, because Treasury says to us, look, we are not going to be able to fund everything that you are asking us to fund, and so you need to tell us exactly where you can make where you can make the cuts. So we are not out of the fiscal reality that says that we are in a shrinking fiscal envelope at every single time. And there were some difficult choices that had to be made just to save, for instance, the National School Nutrition Program, just to save the grant that deals with learners with severe disabilities. So these are some of the tough choices that we have to make. And in as much as we would ask Treasury to say, look, we require more money for this and this reason, the truth of the matter is that money doesn't exist in the fiscus. And so that is the reality. And so we are constantly having to balance, how do we protect our core business in a fiscally shrinking environment? Then the other issues that I think it was Honorable Shigwamban who raised the issue around grade R and the absorption of grade R. The team here will be able to explain, but one of the things that we did as soon as we understood that grade R was to be compulsory from this year is that we did an audit of all the grade R practitioners that existed, and we found that there were over about 7,000 of them. And then we also obviously made them the offer to be able to upgrade themselves so that they can have a B.Ed, because obviously in order for you to be a fully fledged educator, you must have the requisite qualification. And there are a number of them that are going through UNISA. However, it's not the full 7,000, because some of them would not necessarily be able to qualify. Some of them would to qualify to get into university. But the issue around the absorption of grade R practitioners or grade R teachers in the Free State, that is something that we would need to follow up on. But I just wanted to maybe give a broader sense of where we are with grade R expansion. Then the other issue I think that was raised is that monitoring the EIG, now that the infrastructure grant has been taken to the provinces, what kind of accountability tools we will be using. Well, what will be useful here is that in the department, there's obviously we've got the infrastructure unit, and as I've said to them consistently, that we're going to have to move towards a far more greater and rigorous
monitoring process to make sure that no province should be underspending on infrastructure, not when our infrastructure challenges are that many. The fact of the matter is, if we were to estimate the infrastructure backlog that we are looking at across the country, we're looking at close to 140 billion rand. So no province should be underspending on the EIG, and even in the CEM, we present to MECs where they are with the expenditure in terms of the conditional grants, and we make it quite clear that this is where you should be. If you are going to be underspending, this is going to be your problem. And so that is part of one of the accountability mechanisms, Honorable Low, on how we are making sure that provinces are spending, but also making sure on the one side that obviously we give them the support to be able to do that spending. And then the other issue on educators overcrowding and grade R, the concerns are raised and understood. Obviously, overcrowding remains one of the clearest signs of our pressures in the system. Provinces continue to face difficulty in filling vacancies, expanding posts that are required. However, in relation to grade R educators, the challenge is closely tied to provincial compensation budgets, because the national department provides a policy direction, but of course the employment of educators is largely a provincial function. But again, that is why I have recently written to the provinces to make sure that they are, one, revising their post-provisioning norms, but making sure that vacancies are filled, especially vacancies that have been budgeted for. And so it's really, really important that that takes place. Then there's an honorable member that raises the issue around the undocumented South African children. And this is why, honorable members, we are very specific about the fact that we are guided by the law here when it comes to access to quality education for all children in South Africa, because the Constitution is quite clear. But also at the same time, I think the Honorable Ngobeni's point points exactly to what the outcome of the 2019 court case said, that the truth of the matter is that you've got South African children who are also undocumented. So to be able to essentially exclude children on the basis of the absence of documentation would be effectively denying children, whether or not they're South African citizens, you would be denying them the opportunity to be able to get to school. And the point she makes and the story she tells about this little girl is exactly one of the things that we are facing, that there are children who are born, who are raised by grandmothers. These are typical South African stories. And so that's why we've been quite vociferous about saying we cannot allow ourselves to have the conversation around illegal immigration and including children and school-going children in that process. Because we one would be going against the Constitution, and then of course we would be going against the most recent judgment in 2019. Then I think one of the other issues that were raised were some of the targets around the APP. Honorable Ngobeni also asked the question around how do we make sure that the school nutrition does improve school attendance. Well, as I think the chair, in fact, mentioned this in her opening, that one, I think having providing breakfast in schools, one, allows children to be on time, but it also improves their attendance in school. And by virtue of the fact that they are in school, it means that we are likely going to be able to see an uptake and also an uptick in their performance generally, because ultimately you can't teach a hungry child, and so providing the school nutrition is one of those things that are important to being able to see performance. And then, of course, we wouldn't be able to track here what we would have to do with the APP is to be able to say these are our targets, and then of course we'll be able to report back on how we're doing with those targets in platforms like the budget speech and other engagements that we would have with you. The other question around the provision of LTSM or textbooks to foundation phase, I think that members don't have to worry about that. It won't adversely affect. It shouldn't adversely affect the provision of textbooks for next year. And so, as the Honorable Ngobeni says, we will obviously be able to come back here and give you feedback on where we are with that. Chair, I don't know if there's there are financial related questions. Don't know if the DG or the CFO wants to come in here. Thank you. DG?
Thank you, Minister. I'm going to request that the CFO must come and clear the questions around the budget, and then ask Dr. Whittle and Mr. Mafuku to add, Minister. And then I will come once they have covered those areas that need me to be covered. I mean, to be covered by me if they are not covered by them. CFO, can you clarify the issue of the budgets? There are a couple of questions from Honorable Mkize and other honorable members that the budget is not growing. And then after that, then Dr. Whittle, Mr. Mafuku, then I'll come in as soon as you have covered those.
Thanks, DG. Thanks, Minister. Some of the questions that Honorable Mkiza asked, I could not get the figures correctly, maybe, but I think the Minister has touched overall on the issue of the budget, because the budget, we don't allocate it. It gets allocated by Treasury. So the reductions that the members do see on the budget are reductions that are imposed on us by Treasury. But I'll go to specific questions as well. There was a question on the allocation for grade R teachers. And it also zoomed into whether there's any allocation or not for the Free State. The allocation for grade R for equalization of pay as you earn, as Treasury calls it, for the 26-27 financial year, the total is 53.2 million. And the Free State, part of the Free State portion thereof is 3.5 million. There's 3 provinces which have not been allocated, and Mr. Rautapi, who's in charge of who's the branch head, acting branch head for teachers, may want to clarify. But the provinces are Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, and Northwest. What happened, and if there's a need, as I say, Mr. Rautapi may add. What happened was that when these funds became available, the relevant branch, which is teachers, and I think another branch as well, communicated with the provinces to say, we've got these funds. Do you have teachers that need to be funded for the equalization of salaries? And 3 of the provinces did not come forward, and that's why only 6 have been allocations have gone to 6. For the MTEF period 27-28, the total is grows from 53 million 206 million. And for the outer year 28-29 financial year, it grows from 106 million to 181 million. I must say that the door is not closed for those provinces, and those communications, I've seen them, they're ongoing, to say those provinces which have been locked out for the current financial year could still come forward and motivate, because what they have to do is to give names and lists of teachers who are affected. So it's not just to say we need to be given money. Then another question that came up related to the various variances, goods and services. For example, I'll go program by program, although it's just a few things. It's not a lot, Chairperson. For goods and services, for example, because there's a reduction in the goods and services budget overall. On program 3, because that's where it starts, on program 3, there's a 74% decrease from 500 million to 132 million. And that's because of the 400 million that we spoke about, the ones off training on the BEI, Basic Education Employment Initiative, which we said was a once off for training. So that reduction has affected program 3. Then the same goods and services on program 4, the reduction is 25%, which is about, it reduced from 520 million to 390, which is 129 million. And it's because of the goods and services portion of the school's infrastructure backlogs grant, the ASIDI grant. Because in the ASIDI grant, not everything is for the building of schools. Some of it is goods and services. So that's why there was the contribution from that. Then we also have a decrease in program 4 of non-profit institutions, 42% decrease from 121 million to 51 million. No, by 51 million to 70 million. And it's because of the reduction that we've put on the NECT contribution that we make to the NECT, because the approach is that we need to fund other priorities, and the NECT basically needs to go back to its initial mandate, where it is funded from own funds, own generated funds, than to be funded mainly from the DBE's funding. Then under capital assets, yes, it's one of the big reductions, but I have explained that on program 4, there's a 62% decrease, and that decrease is 648 million, from 1 billion to 400 million, and that's because of the fact that as we said, the ASIDI grant, or the school infrastructure backlogs grant, is no more going to be an internal grant that comes from Treasury to us, but it's going to be an external grant that comes from that goes from the DBE as part of the education infrastructure grant. Let me see if there's anything else. Yes, there's still goods and services, 24% decrease. Okay, I think those are the overalls, basically. I think I've touched on everything that I could. Thanks, DG. Back to you.
Thank you very much, CFO. I will respond to the issues raised on learner well-being, but also specifically on the issues raised about the school nutrition program. So Honorable Ngobeni asks, if you're feeding 9.5 or 9.4 million learners a day, what happens to the difference if you have about 13.7 million learners in the system? And so just to clarify that the school nutrition program is designed to only feed learners in quintile 1 to 3 schools. Many of our provinces have added learners from quintiles 4 and 5 onto the program, like, for example, KZN. KZN has added about 200,000 learners onto the system, and KZN did not get a budget adjustment for that. And so the kinds of problems that KZN experiences that Honorable Kaba has raised are related specifically to issues of budgets. In Gauteng, the Western Cape, and previously in the Northern Cape, they added quintile 4 and 5 learners to the program, but the province then funded those additional learners from the equitable share. In the Western Cape, Western Cape is the only province that does targeting of learners in quintile 4 and 5 schools, which means they identify a certain number of learners per school that they feed, and they use a very innovative way to identify those learners. They look at whether you're getting the child support grant, or your parents are unemployed, or the parents are accessing the SASSA grant. Or in some cases, if they identify children who simply do not bring a lunch to school, and those learners are then fed. That Honorable Shikwambana raises the issue of not all learners being fed, specifically in Mpumalanga, but he also refers to the Northwest and Limpopo. So in the rest of the provinces, we target 100% of learners. And so if there's a particular school that the Honorable Member is aware of, perhaps to provide those schools to us, and we'll certainly we'll certainly follow those up. But also to indicate to the committee that nationally, of all the schools that we serve school nutrition to on any given day, you probably have about 10% of learners that do qualify for the meals and have access to those meals at school that do not utilize those meals. In secondary schools, it's a little bit higher, probably around 15% on any given day. A lot of it is driven by the menu, which is, I think, Honorable Komani's point. And what we try and do is to serve a balanced meal, which is why the focus of MRR is to ensure that the 3 food groups are provided on a daily basis. And we do have meat that is served on the program. The only province at the moment that's serving chicken is the Eastern Cape. So the Eastern Cape, as part of their provincial variation that we approve on their menu, they provide chicken once a week. The rest of the provinces, we provide canned pilchards and canned chicken livers. And then, of course, as I think Honorable Komani and the chair pointed out, we do provide plant-based protein as well, such as soya and beans. The photo that Honorable Komani is asking about, I'm hoping that the colleagues can indicate which school that is, but to indicate that for all new schools that we build, we provide a nutrition center, and that's part of the norms and standards, but I'll leave that, Mr. Mafoko, for you to deal with further. The focus on agriculture is certainly important, and it kind of ties in with the question that the chair's asked, because what we want to do is to use the economic opportunity that the program offers to provide both job opportunities and business opportunities, particularly for SMMEs, youth, people with disabilities, and women in particular. The chair is asking about, are we still planning to centralize at national level? We've since moved away from that model. The thinking at the moment is that you implement at provincial level, but that you have some specifications that you then negotiate with the provinces for the provinces to include those as part of a provincial model. So the minister has taken the new revised model that we are proposing to Cabinet twice, I think in the last 2 years. And at the last meeting, Cabinet asked us specifically to do further consultations, both with key stakeholders, sister departments, but also with the provinces. The DG just yesterday signed a memo for us to reach out to various sister departments and the provinces to facilitate such a consultation. Our work with the Department of Agriculture is particularly advanced because we want to have a big focus on providing fruit and vegetables as part of the program, and we're basing that on the school nutrition model that's utilized in Brazil. And that kind of ties in for me with the question that Honorable Jordan has asked about the model and the timelines, etc. So a lot of that is still up for consultation. We're hoping to take that back to to cabinet as soon as we can. And all of these other matters that I think Honorable Jordan has raised about expansion of the program, the warehouses, the importance of local partnerships, all of those issues, certainly we will flag in the consultations that we'll have. DG, if you'll allow me, there's also been a few other questions around the cuts of security services in Gauteng. Honorable Jordan is correct. The province has indicated to us that I think last year they were spending something like 600 million on security services. They've indicated that that's unsustainable for them. We certainly working with them to ensure that they build, as part of the NSSF, they build their school safety committees, that they link their schools to police stations. And we're working very closely with the police at the moment in those communities where the army is being deployed. Hopefully at some point we can come back to the committee and give you an update on those. And then Honorable Ngubeni has raised the issue of drugs. And just to indicate that our minister sits on the interministerial committee that deals with GBVF and drug abuse. And so we have programs around the closing of taverns that we do with SALGA, local government, and the DTIC, but also programs within schools, search and seizures that we do with the police to deal particularly with drugs in schools and particular schools in communities that we target. DJ, I hope that I've covered all of the issues that have been raised. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Whittle. Minister, just before Mr. Mafoko comes in, there are probably two questions that I might have missed if the minister covered them. The issue of sharing of textbooks. We don't have a policy that provides for sharing of textbooks. It is indeed true, especially below grade 12, that a number of our grade learners are sharing textbooks when they shouldn't be sharing textbooks. So there is no policy that really provides for that. Secondly, Honorable Ngobeni asked whether the current issues in the development of the catalogue would impact negatively on the delivery of textbooks, and mentioned the instance of Limpopo. I don't think so. I don't think so. That we have the sector plan. The sector plan has got milestones to indicate by when provinces should be placing orders for textbooks. Unfortunately, this cycle, it's an overhaul of the provision, if you like. We are replacing the old textbooks, and we've actually given provinces 2026 and 2027 within which they've got to make sure that they have procured the new textbooks, which are updated to be in line with what is required in terms of the curriculum. So the issue of the investigation that Honorable Ngobeni raised wouldn't affect the delivery. And for instance, it would also even the investigation, because it's not about the entire process, where there's an indication that the situation is such that the publishers that are on the catalog will not be able to provide textbooks, but will be able to provide details, I think on Tuesday, as indicated by the chair, to indicate from our side in terms of the process of the department, what do we think is permissible and what do we think can be done or is done about what has been an outcry in the public about one or so of the publishers, which shouldn't really stop the entire process, because nobody is actually saying, is questioning the process of the development of the catalog from the media development or the media statements and comments that I've been able to follow. The big issue has been about one publisher, and the issue is that, what do we do about that? If there are questions about the process itself, I'm sure the portfolio committee will hear from the department and mechanisms that are in place. We do have mechanisms to deal with processes of this nature, whether it's about the process itself or whether it's a publisher. We've done that before. We've given a report to the portfolio committee. For instance, if there were allegations of irregularities around the development of the catalog, we appointed an independent auditing company which did an investigation. The report was shared with the portfolio committee after that investigation. But we'll be able to share more on Tuesday. So I thought that just those two things, Minister, I could maybe offer comment and then request Mr. Mafuku to just deal with the infrastructure issues. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, DG. That's quite useful. Mr. Mafuku? Mr. Mafuku, can you come in on the infrastructure questions, please? Apologies, Chair. We seem to have lost Mr. Mafuku from the platform. I don't know if there are questions that were specifically not responded to that we can either between the DG and myself respond to quickly, since he's not on the platform. Apologies for that.
I think there was a question about the conditional assessments that we were told provinces are conducting on the state of the schooling infrastructure. In different provinces, we were told that they are busy with a conditional assessment, because our issue is where we are seated. Every time we go to oversight, or just not even going to oversight, our observation is that the state of the schooling infrastructure is in such a serious disarray, and the concern of the members is that seemingly there is no budget. The budget keeps on being cut in terms of infrastructure, whereas on the ground the situation is deteriorating. So the conditional assessment reports would be able to give us a clear picture of how dire the situation is, because where we are seated, I think one member was been saying that the DM was saying we need about 30 new schools. But if you listen to other MECs in other provinces, everyone just makes an estimate of how much we might need. The MEC of Gauteng was speaking about billions of rands that they need as a province if they are to deal with the infrastructure backlog. So our question was that we were told that there is conditional assessments that are being conducted. Are they complete? Are the provinces that have completed those conditional assessments, those that have completed maybe indicate to us so that we can see when do we have that kind of a meeting with both DPE and the provinces based on the outcomes of those conditional assessments. We're raising this, Minister, because there are instances where there is an infrastructure that was built about 11 years ago. And that infrastructure, there was never an occupation certificate that was issued, or the infrastructure was abandoned by the contractor. There's other infrastructures where we go to other schools. They were built about 6 years ago or 7 years ago. But then the school will tell you, or the principal will tell you, this infrastructure, the roof has been leaking. And the roof was leaking from the first day it was handed over. So that conditional assessment will be able to tell us such issues on the quality of the infrastructure that is there now, because I agree with members that say it's no longer even about the availability of classrooms only. It also poses a health risk. It's a hazard to learners in some instances where they are occupying these buildings that are very old, where we're told there's big cracks, and yet there has not been any professional assessment on that building in the past 3 years to say, look, the building might be old, but it's not compromised. So those conditional assessment will assist us to have that picture, and it will assist the department to have that picture so that we don't place the lives of our children under risk. So I think that is one of the questions. I don't know if there is other questions on infrastructure, honorable members, that have not been responded to. That I'm just checking on the list of it. Okay, Honorable Komani,
Chair,
quickly on infrastructure.
there's
Yes,
a whole host. Can I come in, Chair?
Honorable Mkiza, you're not. Are you Honorable Komani these days? It's Honorable Komani's hand that I saw. Let's start with Honorable Komani, then we'll come back to you. Honorable Komani.
a go leboga kgale ke bušeletse ke re msikolo o go tlogela ga re tipsene ka wene le kgone ke be ke nyaka go dira follow up to our minister and just to congratulate her, compliment her for at least today she's been with us. Thank you, our mother. And then my follow-up question, it was about the scholar transport allocation to KZN at Abatulusi municipality. I raised it straight to her that I want to understand what is the cause of the problems that we resolved, but it comes back again. If there is a problem, why is it that not seeing the problem coming, it is always coming to cause conflictions to our school, whereby our children have to walk long ways while they are used to be in transport? And then so we can just think what it will do to our children. And the other thing that I forgot, Ms. Minister.
Honorable Komani, it's follow-ups, right? It's a follow-up.
Yeah, but there is a danger here.
What is the danger?
The danger is the mobile classes that have been at school long ago is dilapidated. What to do with that one? Because it's a hazard. What we are talking about, the hazards in our schools. One is at Mayatla school in Ephraim Mogale. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Komani. Honorable members, I'm going to ask this again, that specific schools, at least if we've got specific schools, and they've not been responded to, please indicate, because we encourage members to communicate to the department directly on specific schools so that we can get specific responses on those schools. And it's not just a general matter, but we get specific responses on interventions that have been put in place in those schools. Honorable Mkize?
Chair, I put to the department that budget cuts are a direct threat to the department, and why then that's not seen as an opportunity to increase budget to change things. I spoke about the unavailability of the performance indicators under school infrastructure. I haven't had any reflection on that. And lastly, I spoke about the importance for the department to go look at the situation analysis again to properly align the threats with the risk and the priorities moving forward. I haven't had any response in terms of that, because there were sharp contradictions where finance management is seen as a strength on the same plan is also seen as a weakness. So how do they go back and do proper SWOT analysis and realign their weaknesses, strengths, opportunities, and threats as well, so that the plan is proper, not the current one they've presented?
Okay, thank you, Honorable Mkize. Minister.
Let me come in quickly here before I call on the DG Chair. Mr. Mafubu, who's the head of our infrastructure, is not able to be in the meeting. He's since dropped off. So with your permission, what I could ask, if we can send you in a written response the conditional assessment that you're asking for per province, so that the members could have it in writing, so that we can be able to respond to that. I agree with you where in terms of the safety aspect of infrastructure, it's not just about a tick box exercise, but it's about making sure that there's dignity in the places where teachers are teaching, when learners are learning. So I can commit that Mr. Mafuku will be able to put that conditional assessment together. With regards to the point that Honorable Kize is making, I think that what in putting that SWOT analysis together, what the team is saying is that two things can be true at the same time. While we've got unqualified or unqualified audit, the truth of the matter is that financial controls remains one of the things that are still things that we need to work on. So the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, you can have both something that is a strength and also a weakness in which you need to work on. And I thought that I had addressed the issue of why don't you just put in more money? There isn't more money to be put on, Honorable Mkize. Unfortunately, there isn't, and I went to great pains, I think, to explain why this how the sector has been underfunded over 10 years. And so provinces have had to absorb both unfunded and unfunded mandates. And let me make an example. The provision of grade R, the sector didn't get additional funding for that. We had to be able to absorb that into the provincial baselines, and they've had to take on that hit. So the point I'm trying to make is that there are things that can be both the strength and the weakness, but at the same time, in terms of the provision of money, there is no new money that is coming, and that's why we've got to be a lot more prudent in the way in which we do our work. And that's why I agree with honorable members that when provinces are given conditional grants such as infrastructure, there can be no excuse for under expenditure at all, considering the size of the problem. DG, is there anything else you would like to add here before I hand over back to the chair?
Okay.
Okay. No, then over back to you, Chair. I suspect he may have dropped off.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister, and your team for those responses. We do hope that we will get those written responses. And when in your written responses, please also respond to the issue raised by Honorable Komani, which I think would be part of those conditional assessments, which is true that containers now all over the country, as opposed to them having been temporary relief structures, they are now utilized as permanent classrooms, where we've been to schools where it's only containers in the entire school. And when they were established and when the school was established, it was meant to be a temporary structure, a temporary relief because of overcrowding in other schools. But 10 years down the line, the containers are still there, and majority of them, they are not maintained. And some of these containers are delivered without them being complete. They don't have electricity, they don't have fans, they don't have aircons, and when it's very hot, it becomes very difficult for learners and the teachers. So I hope those responses also covers how big that problem is and what is the plan. Honorable members, I think we are going to have to leave it here, and we thank the the department and yourselves, and we will inform honorable members on the final agreement in terms of the meeting to discuss this issue that has been on the media, because we need to respond to the requests made by members. And we will further, honorable members, try and finalize the report of the oversight and share it with yourselves. It seems like it's going to be very difficult to meet with Mpumalanga before we finalize the report, but we will still try. We will still look into our program and the program of Parliament and still try to meet with Mpumalanga. So, honorable members, with that said, I agree, Honorable Komani, the flu must leave all of us. It must leave all of us. And thank you very much, honorable members. I think let's leave the issues here. The meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everybody.